Hello and welcome back to the shed. In today's video I have 10 woodworking tips for you. Tip 1. Blunting the end of a nail to prevent it splitting when nailing at the edge of a board that you might use for the backing of a cabinet. So first of all I'm going to nail a nail in here that you'd use for backing, coming in about, 5-6 millimeters as a backing. Hammer it in. And we can see that badly split the piece of wood. Big split here, big split there. Doesn't mean you couldn't tap that out, re-glue it and pre-drill before doing that. But now I'm going to show you how blunting the end of the nail will prevent this. So we'll make a makeshift anvil over here by putting another hammer in the vise. Now we've got this. Put the head of the nail down like this. Just spin it around and give it a few soft taps. Now we're going to put this in right next to the other one. And we can see here, no splits anywhere. Now the reason this works is, when you've got a nail that doesn't have a rounded off edge, it's acting like a wedge, so it wants to split the fibres. As soon as you roll it, it sort of crushes the fibres as it comes through, and you have a much lesser chance of splitting your piece of wood. Give that one a try for yourself. Tip number 2, removing some dents that you got in a piece of work that you've almost finished. So we've got a nice smooth piece of timber here, got a few nails, and we've and now we've got all these lines, scratches. So what we do is grab a damp cloth, an iron, nice and hot. Be careful not to burn yourself. And you can keep wetting the cloth if you need to. And we just steam it with water. Dry it off a little bit. And now, on this spot here, the marks are pretty much gone. There's a little tiny scratch there, but you could bring a card scraper in and remove that, or maybe try a little bit more water and it'll be fully removed. But most of those scratches, other than the very deep ones, are now gone. Tip number 3, saving your thumbs from burning when using a card scraper. So many of you have been using a card scraper like this, and you know how fast it can start to generate heat on your thumbs if any of you have used one. And you can start to burn your thumbs to the point where you can't hold it. So you can get a bit of fridge magnet like this, or a smaller fridge magnet, and you can keep going for a lot longer before feeling the heat. Try it out for yourself. Tip number 4, getting yourself out of a bind on a workshop where you snap your last drill bit that you're using to do a pilot hole for a nail. So you snapped your last drill bit and you want to pilot a hole to put your nail in right on the end of this board. Say it's a bit of siding on the wall or something. So how are we going to drill this hole? So what we do is we grab a nail the same size that we're going to be actually hammering in. Get a pair of pliers, cut the top off it, mount it in the drill. Now if it's not sharp enough, you can get a little file on that and sharpen it out. Then you come along like this. And we drill the hole with that nail. As we can see here, we've got a perfect size hole. Come along with the nail we wanted to tap into this. Problem solved. We've got a perfect size hole for the nail, and it's going to be a nice firm fit for that nail. Tip number 5. Reducing the friction on your hand plane to make hand planing much easier. So we're planing like this. It's gliding along there, it's cutting relatively easy, but we think it can be better and we can do better. So I've just got a little bit of candle wax here. Just rub a little bit of candle wax on the sole of the plane. And it effortlessly glides across the surface. And the only force you're doing is pushing the blade through the timber instead of pushing the friction of the sole on the wood. Tip number 6, cleaning a dirty diamond stone. So you might have a diamond stone a bit like this that's looking really dirty, picking up a little bit of rust marks, or you've used it for flattening a bench stone or a water stone. We use just an ordinary table pencil eraser, and we use that on here, back and forwards, and it's good, shiny, and almost brand new. Tip number 7, measuring the depth of a mortise or a hole you've drilled and you don't have a depth gauge. So you want to measure the depth of a hole and you don't have a depth gauge to get a nice accurate reading. There are a few ways you could do it. You could use a small ruler like this, put that down in here, take your measurement. That's relatively accurate. It could work pretty well, but it does rely on where you put your fingers to actually hold it when it comes back out, so you could be a little bit off. You could use the back of a pencil and then use your ruler on that. That could work. It's probably not the most accurate, but it could work, and it's essentially how a depth gauge works. Or you could take a wheel marking gauge, one like this, that has your markings on the side, so you can put the exact depth you want here, put it down there, and make sure that it's fitting and down to depth right the way around, and that the wheel is flat here, so this flat surface is flat against your workpiece, and you know you've got to depth. That's the most accurate way. Tip number 8, how to hold your handsaw correctly to cut to a straight line. The correct way to hold a handsaw, any saw, I'm going to show you with a tenon saw here, makes a big difference in how accurate and how straight you can cut with the saw. So let me bring in and I'll show you how and why it makes a difference to help you improve your hand sawing. A lot of people think you should hold the saw full fist like this because, you know, it makes sense. That looks like the way it should be held. The problem with this is flip-flop and you have no control over the saw. Your only control you really have is how you hold your wrist, and that makes it a lot more difficult to control your saw. The correct way is a 3-finger grip here, finger down here, and the weight of the saw is held by this little horn down here. So when you're holding it, you could actually just hold it one finger like that, and it's supporting the weight of the saw. So by pointing down here, it changes the way the muscles are on your wrist, and it gives you much more control to allow you to saw like this. You can control it this way, and you just have way better control over your saw, and you can keep it nice and straight. So your wrist, from your finger through to the wrist to the elbow to your shoulder, keeps it all nice and straight as you're sawing, allowing you to cut much easier to a straight line. So now I'm just going to go ahead. I'll show you with me holding the saw the way I've just shown you, and how accurate we can be sawing right next to a line on a piece of timber. So using this technique, we can see, so we're holding the saw with the finger grip like that. And we come in here and we start it. And we've cut down with a dead straight cut right next to that line. Tip number 9. How to fix a little split that's splintered on the end of your dovetails, or if you're end grain planing and you split out the edge of the board. So you're hand planing a board like this, and you know you're not supposed to go to the end, and you chip it out like this. So how do we fix that? So what do? We grab a little bit of super glue. Not much, you don't need a lot. Grab a bit of painter's tape, so you push that together with that super glue. Use your painter's tape as a clamp. Put a good bit of pressure on it. And you could hit that with activator to speed that process up. Or now you just wait for that to dry. Now that that glue's dried, you can take the tape off. Good as gold, all attached, and can't even see it. Project saved. Tip number 10, and the final tip, edge jointing the boards at the two boards at the same time to ensure they make a perfect joint when you glue them together. So we have these two boards here that we want to edge joint so they join up perfectly, but we're not very good at getting a square and even planing on the side of the board. So here's my solution. You lift both boards up together like this, match them together, use a bench as a reference, we put them in here, and we plane them together. So we're planing them together, and we haven't even checked to see if they're square. We'll bring them out, lie them back down, and they join up perfectly. The whole thing is when you've got them together like this, any angle that is out, so it might be high on this, low on this side, high on this side, the opposite board, when you fold them back, has the exact opposite of what you've hand planed. So you'll get that perfect joint every time. So there you have it, folks. There's 10 quick tips that will help improve your woodworking and fix up some of those little mistakes that happen along the way. If you like this type of video, please let me know in the comments below, because I might try and make this a monthly sort of video. If not, please tell me what you don't like about it. And, as always, please consider liking and subscribing, checking out my Patreon, links are in the description below. Bye for now.